very few people in the room who had done oryoki before. And I had said earlier, watch, observe, look around the room so that you can follow and look at the people who have more experience. And there were not very many people who had much experience. So I congratulate you. You did a wonderful job. It's very good. And this and the other forms and the rituals that we've been introducing to the new people here, sometimes we don't realize, most of the time we don't realize what the importance is, the meaning is of those rituals and the forms. We think of them as something that we have to learn and master, and that we resist, or maybe we like them, other ones we don't like. We have all sorts of experiences with these rituals and these forms. And the truth is that everything, everywhere we go, whether we're in a retreat or not in a retreat, we are confronted with situations like that. So it's just here we have different rituals and forms than we have when we go to the supermarket, for example. There's a ritual about that. There are rules. You have to wait in line to pay. You have to pay. You gather the food that you need. You can maybe compare prices. You have brands that you like and that you don't like. You go to certain shops because they have things that you want and you avoid others. There's a whole ritual around it. The woman or the man sitting behind the cashier has a ritual of what they have to do and say, and usually they are trained to say, oh, do you have the carte de fidélité, or the store's card? And if you say no, would you like it? The form is right here, it's free. They're trained to say this is what their ritual is. And then they ring up their prices, they ring up everything you have, and they tell you how much it costs. They have to give you your receipt with the money, they want you to take the receipt. Rituals, okay? Here we've established rituals that most of you have never seen before, or even if you have seen them before and you've been to retreats before, these rituals are still not part of your daily routine, your daily experience. And that's the point, as it were. Because when we have our routines, we're not really even paying any attention to what's going on. And we're missing the experience of the now, the nowness, the freshness, the newness of the experience. This morning when you did oryoki, you will never experience oryoki like that again. Of course, it's different every time. But because it was your first experience of it, you had no expectations, really, or less than you will have the next time. Next time you do it, at lunchtime after this talk, you already will have expectations of, oh, I forgot to do this, or it was really confusing, or okay, now I know how much food I can take, so I can have more food, or whatever. Of course, it was new for all of us because we had never done it at that moment, with those people, with that food, in this place, on this day, etc. For those of us who have done oryoki before, it's harder to have that experience of the nowness, the newness of it. these rituals that we have here are all intended to help us let go of the usual way that we do things, what we do, when we do it, how we do it, where we do it, why we do it. These rituals, like I said last night, those aspects, we aren't even asked to question them. It's just what it is, okay? You're just told, okay, this is oryoki, this is how you do it, and you do it. There's something very liberating in that. Just do it. Without having your attachments to what it should be, how it should be, when it should be, where it should be, who it should be. You just do it. The same thing applies to all of life. But because we don't have these, we're not put into these situations where things are new every time. They are new, but we don't see them as being new. We don't experience them as being new. Because it's our routine. And one of the principal routines that we have is me. So it's me who establishes the routine that I have, the habits. Because I like this or that, I don't like that or this. So I arrange things so that they fit with how this I wants them to be, or doesn't want them to be. And this is where all of our problems arise. From this basic misunderstanding of this identity. So we think of this as being something solid and concrete and fixed and an individual. And we pass our lives trying to enhance this individuality and enforce what comes from this individual. So opinions, ideas, order, control. I had a very interesting experience in the airplane coming here on Thursday. I fly a lot, I travel a lot, and so I have my routines of how I do things. And I try to get a seat close to the front of the plane, if I can, and an aisle seat. Because I have long legs, and I like to have space for my legs. And then I can get up when I want to without bothering anyone. If I'm at the front of the plane, I can get off quickly. Usually someone is waiting for me. We have to go somewhere quickly. So I had this routine. So it was all arranged. I had my seat, and I was row 5. In front of me was just business class. And also, because you are at the front of the plane, you don't have to get on the plane right away, because they start loading from the back. Everything was good, casual. I got on the plane, and I arrived in a seat, and there was a man right in front of me who was in the seat behind me. And he picked up a suitcase and he put it in the overhead compartment. But it was the overhead compartment that was for my seats, right, for my row. And it was the last place in that compartment. Okay, that jerk took my place, right? And I thought, oh, okay. I look around, all of the compartments were full in my vicinity. So I had this suitcase, and the flight attendant, the man, was a little ways away, and I called him over and explained to him in French, because I was in France. He was Portuguese, but he understood what I was saying. And he said, oh, and he started looking around as well, and the only place that we could see was far back. And I said, no, because then I will have to go back and get my bag. And he said, no, this is the only possibility. We have to put it here. And he took my bag and put it there. So I really had no choice. happy, and I went and sat down. What am I going to do? This is not good, projecting into the advance, because when it's time to get off the airplane, everyone stands up right away and starts rushing towards the front, and I would have to go the opposite direction to get my bag, and there's no room for that. Or I would have to wait until everyone got off the plane, and then we would go to an event. Not happy. Didn't go as I planned. So I was thinking, what can I do? And I'm really stewing on this. And so people kept coming on, and most of the seats around me were full, so I knew the people, they were going towards the back of the plane. There was another flight attendant standing in business class, and a guy came on. He was the big frantic flight attendant because there was so much luggage and so many people. It was getting late. Some guy arrived with a suitcase who was clearly heading to the back of the plane. And the flight attendant took his bag and he said, "Just put it here." And he opened up the compartment right in front of me in business class, which was empty. And started to put it up there. And I said to the flight attendant, my bag is back there where he's going. I can get my bag and bring it here, and he can put his back there where he's going. And the flight attendant said, no. No, and they started taking the guy's bag, and I argued with him. I said, but it doesn't make any sense. I can do it right now. Get my bag, and I explained the whole thing. No, he wouldn't do it, and I kept insisting. And finally, he put the bag there, and he looked at me, and I kept saying, it doesn't make sense. And he put the bag up, the guy went back, and he looked at me and said, Madame, in French, Madame, c'est comme ça. I guess everybody understands that. That's how it is. Lady, this is how it is. I stopped. I thought, what was I doing? What was that all about? Unbelievable. Nobody else around was even paying attention. This was clearly just me and the flight attendant having this exchange. And because he had said, there's not much time, there's no time for it, we have to do this, there's too much baggage. And it's true, there was too much baggage. Because if you think about it, if everyone has one bag, there's 3 bags in the compartment, every row should be fine, right? But everybody has too much baggage. So. What is that about? And I dropped it. And I realized it has to do with what I'm telling you today, is this strong attachment to me. And my bag, my time, my place, how I wanted it to be, and I have a very strong tendency to, I can see things very clearly, and I can sort out, see a situation logically, and very clear. That has a disadvantage though, because if it doesn't work out that way, there's this anger that arises. It can be helpful to see things clearly if I don't have this attachment to me and my way and righteousness of how it should be. So it's this me who makes the problem, right? My attachment to how it should be, the way that it should be done, and I was even thinking this guy is stupid. He doesn't see that it makes sense for me to get my bag and put it there, and that guy to have his bag there, and make everything much smoother. I had to let go of that, because it's just an attachment to me and my idea, my opinion, my way of wanting to control things, have things be the way I think they should be. It's all attachment to me. I give you this example as an illustration because you can all relate to it, I'm sure. Maybe not in that. Maybe you don't have that attachment, but there's others. And also as an example of, you may have projections of thinking that I'm someone who doesn't have this kind of issue, but we all do, right? skilled in this practice, but it still arises. Maybe not as often as it used to, or whatever, but it still arises. But because I've trained in this practice of, oh, it's time to eat, let's eat. Oh, this is where we put the spatula, let's do it. Oh, this is when we bow, we bow. This is when to sit, it's just doing it. Because I've trained extensively in that, I can more easily let go when this arises in my daily life. And not insist more than I did, which already was too much. However, I dropped it, and then nobody had to think about it anymore. I didn't speak to this flight attendant about it anymore, and I didn't, hold it against the guy behind me who took my place with his bag. Because if he hadn't put his bag there, I would have, and he would have had the same problem. He would have had to put his bag there. So, fine. It was good for him to have his bag there. I had to do the difficult thing, and he had the easy way. That's good. It's fine. I was happy for him to have that. Initially, I was not. But when I could drop my attachment to me, and how I wanted things to be, and I should have his place, he should not have it, or whatever. Freedom. I could just sit there in the airplane and read the newspaper and sleep, but not worry about it. Of course, when I arrived, then I had to think, okay, what am I going to do? I knew that there were people waiting to get me. I knew that we had an appointment, that we didn't have a lot of time, and I arranged this to be, get off the plane quickly, but I thought, okay, well, Madame, sick himself. And someone told me that Portuguese, I'm assuming he was translating from Portuguese, and the Portuguese version of that is not very polite, apparently, to say that. So what was it, João?
É assim ou mais nada. Mais aquela coisa. It's a very colloquial way.
Yeah, it's a very colloquial way. Maybe he wasn't translating that. It wasn't rude, however, when he said it. And he said Madame before, which is a very polite way. So then I was in the position, okay, I arrived, what do I do now? This is the situation. C'est comme ça. This is it. What do we do? How do I react? Because I had gone into this attachment to me and whatever, I had to say, okay, given all the circumstances, what is the appropriate way to behave? Do I sit there and wait till everyone is off the plane and then go get my bag? Do I leave my other things, my coat and my smaller bag, on my seat and try to go back and get my bag and come back? Do I go back there, get my bag, wait then back there, and then grab my things and get off? I decided that I would just see how the moment presented itself. Trying to let go of my attachments to it, how I wanted it, or what I thought, or, of course, in those kinds of situations, things can arise like, well, what will other people think when they see this crazy woman running the other way when everyone's an idea? Or, who does she think she is, standing here, taking his bag out quickly and running back up? You have to let go of all those things too. So the other's going to think, what's appropriate? And the only way to know what's appropriate in the situation is to not be attached to me. In that way, we can see the circumstances as they are. We can see what's happening. And then act according to the circumstances as required instead of as I want them to be, or how I think they should be, or how I want to be seen or not seen. And as it was, the best solution that presented itself was there was a moment of gap where I had time to, I left my things on the seat, I had time to go back, take down your bag and just wait there then with everyone else who was in that area and go off, and it was my turn, and take my things as I passed and go off. And it was actually quite smooth. It even allowed me to help other people take things down from the overhead compartment because I was there standing up before they were. So it was helpful, in fact. And my sense of the situation was that it didn't because I was not in the way, it didn't disturb the orderly or the ordinary way that it functions when you get off an airplane. It's always a bit chaotic. Because everyone's standing in their bags, trying to do this, and then there's an old guy who walks very slowly, or children. It's always a little chaotic. I think that my sense was that because I had let go of I in the situation, I didn't raise any waves. It was just part of the normal chaos. However, the people who were waiting for me, Miguel and João, had to wait a while because I was a bit long getting off the airplane. It didn't affect the rest of our day. We made it to our appointments with no problem. Which was further evidence for me, although they weren't aware of the situation, further evidence of me of the futility of my entire issue with having my bag there overnight. Which is a wonderful illustration of the damage that I do to myself by being attached to me, my ideas and my opinions, and how things are fluid if I'm not attached to them. That it's so much easier. That's where our freedom lies. And that's the only thing we always talk about, having to let go in this practice. We haven't heard that, but it's a common refrain. The only thing that we need to renounce is this I, which is an illusion anyway, this illusory perception of I, of me. As I illustrate in this very concrete example, that was what was causing me. It was my attachment to me and how I wanted things to be. And in that moment, I wasn't even seeing the guy coming on with the suitcase. It would be better for him to have the suitcase in the back. Who knows if it would be better or not for him to get the suitcase in the back? Maybe he was really happy to have it there in business class and he didn't have to think about it anymore. And could take it at the last minute when he got off. Who knows? But I wasn't seeing him. I was seeing me. And then he was an extension of me and what I wanted and how I wanted to control the situation. This I, this illusory perception that we have, gives rise to far greater problems than just an issue of a suitcase on the airplane. It gives rise to the economy in which we live, greed, inequity, it gives hunger, poverty. It gives rise to the political climate in which we live, with people fighting against each other for power, to the geopolitical situation, which we have people, desperate Palestinians stabbing completely innocent Israelis. We have people bombing all kinds of people in various countries. We have drug trafficking, dictatorships, everything, nuclear weapons. It's endless. And it's even, we have anorexia, we have depression, psychological, it can be geopolitical. It's all manifestations of it. Everything we see is a manifestation of that. All of these conflicts and questions. And we say, okay, well, I can't do anything about changing the world economy. I can't do anything about stopping the war in Syria. I can't possibly welcome 10,000 refugees in my home. I can't eliminate AIDS. I can't stop nuclear weapons. But that's not the point. The point is here. This is where it starts. If we imagine everyone doing this work we're doing in this practice, if we imagine that, the world we would imagine a different world. Of course, it's a fantasy. We can, though, aspire to that in ourselves. And that's what you're doing if you're here. You're sitting down, letting things be as they are. And all of these rituals that we have, that's the point. It's to, when we join in a ritual, so we all chant together, we're joining in something that's impersonal. Usually we're doing things personally. When we join in a ritual, it's impersonal. And it gives us, even if it's subtle, a taste of what it is, that impersonal aspect of ourselves, which is where the freedom lies. As I said, not being chained by these desires, opinions, ideas, preferences, this I. The practice, as we do it, breaks those chains. And the rituals are intended to help us break those chains. If we can be aware when we're doing it, if we can pay attention. Of course, we're not aware that we're breaking our chains. We may encounter resistance, which is a sign of the chain. That is shackles, as we say. Those resistance, that's a sign. Oh yeah, that's part of the chain. Because that's me who's resisting the ritual. Who's saying, I don't want to do that. It's I. Okay. We recognize that. It doesn't mean we have to push that resistance away. It just means recognize it. Include it. And sit with that. Difficulty sitting, resistance sitting, and sit with difficulty. Just be with that. You don't have to be doing anything other than what is there. It's like in this situation, the brain is loud, so I have to talk louder. The light is loud. Maybe we should turn on the light. According to the circumstance, we do something different. Now sometimes we do the opposite. So we really, some people fall in love with the forms and the rituals and become experts. So then there's an I who's an expert in this form, in these rituals, in these forms, and is telling other people how to do it or not do it, how it should be. which is also missing the point. We each come to the form with whatever we are in that moment. And we each arrive and partake in form according to who we are, right? Bringing our personal stuff to it. Sometimes we forget to do things. No two people ring the bell the same way. The flowers are different every time. The clothes are different. It's always different. And everyone comes to it differently. There's a Zen story in which a master, his teaching was one. He always did this. And someone would ask him, what is the essential teaching? Or what is the Buddha way? Or what is Zen? Any of these classic questions, he would always go like this. And he had a young student, boy, probably a monk in those days. We're talking like 9th century, 8th or 9th century in China. And a guest came to the temple or the monastery and asked, and the teacher was not there, the master was not there that day. And the guest asked the boy, so what does your teacher teach? What is his teaching? And the boy went like this. Okay. Later, the master heard about this, heard the story, and called the boy to him and said to the boy, so what is my teaching? The boy did that. And the master, because this was a different culture, a different time and place, sliced off his finger. Sounds very dramatic. It was. And the boy started running, screaming out of the room. And when he got to the door, the master called out his name. His name was paper. I don't know. Called out his name. And the boy turned when he heard his name and looked back. And at that moment, something, we would say, awakened in him. He had some sort of illumination. The master's teaching was not this. That was the master's teaching, so it's true. But what this means, it's not that this is what we all walk around doing. When the boy heard his name, suddenly he got it. It's him. He is the teaching. It's his one way, whatever that is. It's not the master's way. It's not the master's way. We each manifest it in a very singular way. So at the same time as we are asked to let go of this individual illusion of I, at the same time we are asked to manifest this oneness in a singular way. It sounds pretty strange, but the only way to truly manifest the oneness in a singular way is to let go of some fixed idea of what the singular way is. So this boy was stuck on this one way, and this is it. The master took a very drastic measure to eliminate that illusion. We don't know in these stories if they were literal. The stories actually happened. They were handed down generation after generation. But we don't know if he literally cut off his finger. is he cut off his identity with some fixed notion. And this is what we try to do with these rituals that we have here. We put you into a situation that's unfamiliar, not you. It's impersonal. Everybody does the same thing. As I said this morning when I was teaching Yogi, we all have the same shape of cloth, basically. Maybe a tiny bit different or something. Basically, it's the same size. And yet everyone makes the rectangle different. And every time it's different. Everyone has basically the same bowls and the same spoon and the same sticks, and yet everyone does it differently. Everyone receives the same food, but everyone eats it differently. And it's digested in a different way, although in the same way for all of us. So, that flight attendant was a great Zen master for me that day, in that moment. And if I can approach the moment without that attachment to me, everyone can teach me something, and everything can teach me something. We have coming in the end of October, I don't know if you've heard about this, a retreat that we call Retreat in the Heart of Life. I have a feeling that it hasn't really been circulated in Portugal. Maybe it has. And it's about this. So, whatever your life is that week, going to work, taking care of your children, talking to your partner, going to the supermarket, showering, walking, exercising, driving, whatever you do. That's your practice for the week. You're on retreat, and those are the rituals and the activities that you practice during that week. And everyone who you meet, colleagues, people, the person in the car next to you at the stoplight, the woman who was behind the cash register at the supermarket, the other people in the supermarket, your children, whoever you meet, someone you walk by on the street, they are in the retreat too. They are fellow participants in the retreat. Because you are in the retreat, they are in the retreat. They don't know that. Doesn't matter. Because what's important is you are on retreat and you are relating to them in a different way, supposedly. You're keeping this in mind. Okay? You're keeping in mind that trying not to be attached to me and see them as they truly are. It's a challenge. It's actually, in a way, maybe harder than this kind of retreat. Although I try to give a structure, so everyone, there are sitting times when if you can sit, you sit at home alone. If you're not in Paris, so you can't sit with the group, but if you were, you can sit with the group. I will do teachings every day. There will be, by the blog, on the blog I give teachings. And everyone is asked to come in and on the blog post a commentary saying, this is what my day was like, or I was struggling with this, or I liked this, or just hello, wherever you are. And we've done this before. We have people all over the world. Australia, Africa. We would have had someone in Chile that was back. All over Europe, different places in France, different places in Portugal, Germany, in England, Switzerland, the United States, all over. And it's amazing the connection that we can feel with these people just by reading when they post on the website. Good morning from Melbourne. I'm watching the sun come up over the Indian Ocean. And then a few hours later, good morning from Maputo. I'm watching the sun come up across the Indian Ocean on the other side. Good morning from Paris. I'm watching the sun come up over the Seine, or whatever. It can just be that. Of course, someone I remember putting a long commentary about her experience of putting her daughter to bed and how it was so different during this retreat context than when and it's something she did every day. Things like that. So in this weekend, we have structure. In everyday life, we have different structure. In everyday life, when we have this retreat context of everyday life, we have different structure. All of them are valid. We call them upaya. It's a Sanskrit word for skillful means. Everything is a valuable tool to help us wake up, as we say, to the true nature of this, to see through this illusion that we have of what this is. Because this is the root of the problem. So, brain insight. Any questions?
What's the illusion?
Sorry?
What's the illusion?
The illusion is that I am I, me, and that I have a fixed identity, and that I am separate from you, and I therefore have to protect this because it's everything that is not me is a threat, and therefore I protect, defend, put up walls, cut myself off from the other, and miss, therefore, things as they are true, which is one. It's not something, they're not. Of course, there are differences, but if we only see the differences, then we create problem upon problem. So the illusion is, yes, that I am only separate and different, and not one with the other. And that I'm fixed, that that's a fixed position that I have to protect. And therefore, I'm constantly struggling because it's impossible. I am getting older. Everything is changing in me and outside of me. I can't hang on to it. People I love, they die, or they go away, or I lose my job, or the car breaks down, or whatever. Things are impermanent, and I don't see that. So the illusion is all that.
And all these illusions are created by the ego?
I don't use the word ego because it's such a charged
me
word.
or I.
Yes.
All these illusions
this false
false.
identity that we've created for ourselves. Which, like with all, and if we want to talk about this as a neurosis, with all of our neurosis, they arose from something that at one point was necessary for our survival. So, as a child, you have to develop an identity. You have to separate from your mother in order to function in the world. You have to do that. The problem is what happens is that becomes fixed and we're not encouraged to see the fluidity of it. And it's a misunderstanding of what this identity is. And it takes up all the space and determines everything that we do and how we relate to others and ourselves. So yes,
when
Trying to
they
avoid it. This is not sure, but
think about it.
yeah, this is what we should. This is what will liberate us.
Let's.
Because that's a big program. So if we can just do it moment to moment. In this moment, while I'm sitting on the first cushion, let go of my thought, I wish it would stop raining. Or the person next to me is making too much noise. Whatever it is. Just in this moment, it's a moment-to-moment process, which makes it much more accessible than if we can let go of it. It's like I tell the story of when I was, my son had just been born. And for Christmas, someone had given me a really big book. And, it was like 600 pages or something. And I really wanted it. It was, total chaos. Needed to eat, and I never knew when, and I didn't know when he was going to sleep, and when he was going to wake up and change the diaper, and everything was a huge project because everything was changing all the time. That book, I never touched. It was too big. Had it been divided into 5 small books, I might have taken it. I might have taken one and started reading it. It was too big. Or that's the way that I read Proust, actually. Proust is this enormous project, right? 7 volumes, and every volume is huge. I had started reading it when I was in college. I read the first volume and I loved it, but I never went back and read the others. So 2 years ago, I really wanted to do it again, and this time I approached it completely differently. I said, I will read 1 book a month. I knew that in 1 month I could read books, no problem. I did it. It took me 7 months, but it was just 1 book a month. No big deal. And it was just 1 page after another. And even if I didn't finish it in a month, it was no big deal. It was not like 7 volumes. So this letting go, yes. But right now. Just this right now. I
haven't struggled with this attachment that I had to resentment towards my mother. And you were saying that about not seeing people as they are. And I feel that I do that with her. It's because of the resentment. And it's so strong that I know like I'm not really still to let it go or really to moment by moment, but it's always coming up, and then I can't really see her for how she is, and sometimes I feel like I can't do it because it's too strong.
Yeah, I understand. And that's a good one because the closer we are to people, the more intimate we are with people, the more difficult it is because we have strong things going on. And it's not so much that we have to, if we give ourselves the project of not resenting them, we're only more trouble because we'll deny something about ourselves. What we're feeling, something that might work, or that we say what we try to do, as I said about when we say we don't see the other person. We don't see that the other person is just like me. And the behavior that the other person, whatever it is, resent about is very complex and deep. Doesn't matter so much. She, like you, is attached to things about herself and behaves then from that. And in a sense, it's not her fault. In the sense of she's not aware of it. Like you're not aware of it most of the time. You maybe are a little bit more aware because you have a meditation practice and paying attention, but I'm assuming she doesn't have a meditation practice. So she's probably less aware of it than you are. and suffering from it in ways she doesn't even realize. And she has no idea probably that she's causing you suffering. And as your mother, she really deep down would never want to cause you suffering. But of course, we do that to our children too. The mothers here can recognize that, in unconscious ways. It doesn't change the fact that you feel resentment. And it doesn't change the fact that you would like her to be different. You would like the situation to be different. But it can help you with your resentment and your feelings about that. If you can open up to the seeing her not just as this person who's doing really annoying things, or who's not seeing you, as often that happens with our mothers. You feel like our mother doesn't see us, who we really are. And we resent that. So if we can say, okay, I know how much pain that causes me, and she doesn't see me. So if I can just see that there's pain for her as well, and open a little bit to it, not allow yourself to be overrun with whatever the behavior is, but just it opens a bit of space that can help you feel differently. It won't change the situation. It won't change her. And it won't change the resentment that you feel necessarily, but it may change how you feel about the resentment. I don't know if that. There are practices that are devoted to that. Loving kindness practices, we call them, when you start with something really easy, like a baby kitten or something. You really feel love for the kitten, and you want it to be happy, and you want it to go with home, all these things. And then you may expand it to a child, and then you expand it to, well, maybe your own child or your sister or something. And then to other people's children, and then, well, why not? Why stop at children? Why not make it to adults, and maybe then to your friends or someone, a colleague that you really like working with, someone in the community, something like that. And then you start expanding it to people, maybe anonymous people who you don't even know. Someone who you see regularly on the bus, or someone who lives next door to you but you've never spoken to. Expand this love, this compassion, this desire for them to be happy, to have comfort in their lives, to be free from suffering, all these things. You work up until somebody really difficult, this mother who isn't. But because you've worked up through it step by step, it's easier to do it. And it may not be. But it's something that we work with, we can try to work with little by little. And that too has to do with letting go of me. Because if I open up to the others, it means I have to let go of me. If I wish the others' well-being, I'm not just focusing on my well-being. Doesn't mean I'm denying my well-being, but I'm focusing not only on my well-being. Because I see that my well-being is actually intimately linked to the other's well-being. If the other is not well, I'm not well. So I say about the oryoki. As long as someone is still eating, we are all still eating. And as long as someone is suffering, we're all still eating. I saw the servers leave. Is it lunchtime?
15 minutes. Still 15 minutes.
You said the kids, like reading the from what age, or is it sitting to like with you, or it's kind of talk, discourse?
Well, having raised 2 children myself, I can see mistakes that were made and also things that are positive. And I because I had a practice while I was raising the children, it helped me to also be more aware of parenthood. So that would be a first step for the parents to go through this process themselves of seeing, not being attached to me. Because as a parent, when you're attached to you and how you want things to be, you then project onto the children how you want them to be. And you don't see them as they are, or take into consideration the situation, the greater situation. You see only how you want it to be, and how, or your fears. A very common thing is parents have fears, and therefore then they want to protect their children from what they fear. And actually, in many cases, the children don't have the same fears. They take them over from the parents if the parents have been putting them there. Otherwise, they don't. And if we can see the child as he or she is and allow them to express that, to develop according to their way, they will have a better chance of not being attached to an identity. I read recently a psychotherapist or analyst, I forget, who said he could see when the person walked in the room for the first time, he could often see if they had been forced to walk before they were ready to walk as a child. By the way their posture was and the way that they moved and walked, he could see that there was something not natural about it. And this is something, that's a really basic thing. Parents, they want their children to walk. They're proud. Huh?
And start talking, it's a first one.
Exactly. And a lot of it's unconscious, something, when children fall down and hurt themselves or cry or something, many parents, they don't want the child to suffer, and so they say, oh, it's nothing, it's nothing, it's nothing. Or, here, have this, and they give them some candy or something so they forget about it. Well, it's not nothing. It's something. Something happened. And the child is feeling real distress. And so, by saying, it's not nothing, already we're channeling them into experiencing the world in a way that is not. Their direct experience was hurt, cry. And then the parent comes and says, it's nothing, because they don't want to see the suffering. The parent doesn't want the suffering. So it's a whole, it's a really good laboratory of interdependence and how things spill over and affect the cause and effect, how we create karma as it is. I always say I could not have done my practice without my children. The most amazing practice of letting go of me in order to be present for them. Not only because they cry when you don't know they will cry, and you have to feed them, and you don't know, and whatever, but in a more deep sense as well, seeing the human being, of being the person as he or she is, and allowing them to develop, and marveling at that development. Often parents don't. My son told me recently about, he's 19, and he had a friend over, and the friend, I didn't know the friend, and I said, well, and he said, yeah, he has a really hard time because he doesn't know if he's bisexual or homosexual or straight, he doesn't know, and his mother is always saying to him, she has no problem with gay people, but she wouldn't want her children to be gay. This is horrible for this boy, That's a really obvious kind of thing. But that kind of thing happens on very subtle levels too, trying to project onto our children how we think they should be, like I do in this situation in your family. How I want them to be, rather than seeing others. course, you know, as I like to say, everything has crack, so it's never perfect. Yeah. It's not perfect, and that's how the light gets in. That's how we have individualities and differences. Because not everyone is the same. Not everything is perfect. You know, someone might have a tooth that's crooked or cut, or someone else wears glasses, and someone else has curly hair, and someone else has white hair. It's all different. It's all full of cracks.
You children sit with me?
No. And they, when they were young, and we always did family retreats, and they actually for 7 years lived in a Zen center with me, so they were there. And during the family retreats I would teach meditation to the children. Very basic exercises. Mostly kind of being attentive, things like that. But sitting a bit too. And I would give them a breathing exercise, and instead of counting, they counted, if they could count, they were able to count. They would count their breath, and when they finished 10, they had a big pile of stones, and they would move one stone forward. And then they would do 10 again, and then they would move a stone forward. You know, it was good, they were good at it, it was very concrete for them, but sometimes what would happen is, as children are, they would become competitive, and it would be who could move the stone as fast as anybody with stones, and so they would. So then I would stop. Okay, we did that one enough. But my children never came. They would never come to the workshop. That was fine. They, you know, it was their mom's thing. So. However, you know, because they were raised in this atmosphere, they are far freer than I was at their age. And they are much truer to themselves than I was at that age. So I think just having been in that environment and having parents who were attentive to them in that way has helped them develop. And they're both doing things that most people, my friends, people who don't practice, they're amazed when they see children. They're both pursuing artistic things. You know, one is an actor in cinema, and the other one is a musician. In this world, with all of the capitalist, materialist, utilitarian, pragmatic pressures, they're not doing it. And I think that's because they have a certain freedom that they gained being in that atmosphere. You know, they have problems. They're like everybody. Kids. You know. Okay, servers have returned. I guess that means we're ready to eat. Okay, thank you. The food is here already.